There are two levels of theme operating in every great novel. The first, the multiple themes that divide your characters based on where they stand in the world. The second, the one thing every character in that divided world, from hero to villain, cannot escape. And the way bestselling authors use them together is what makes the difference between a story that's interesting and one that's impossible to put down. Let me show you what I mean. Take The Handmaid's Tale, a dystopian story set in a world where fertile women are being hunted and captured to bear children for the people in power. Now, this story explores totalitarianism, the oppression of women, the use of religion as a way to control society, patriarchy, heteronormativity, and much, much more. Yet, none of these are what you would say the one truth the author wants to shout from the rooftops. That's because it isn't. These multiple themes that the world of the story explores are called the world-building themes. Though quick notes, if you tried Googling world-building themes, you wouldn't find much. It's a term from the Storypillars method, the framework I developed from studying best-selling novels to help writers write a first draft that's not going to take years of endless revision. So with that in mind, what you need to know is that each of these level 1 themes is meant to divide your characters based on where they sit in that world. So for now, remember, world-building themes are dividers. It's important for the rest of the video. Now, having a variety of world-building, of thematic dividers in your novel is actually crucial for the second level to work. I'll get to it in a minute. When you build the world of your story, all the details, all the rules, the hierarchies, all the social structures, whatever it is, you want to make sure that these world-building details are there for a thematic reason. So if there is a specific detail about your world building, something that you're very proud of, something that's unique to your story, then don't let it be just an original quirk of your story. Let it mean something. These world building themes are the extra miles that too few writers go to, and yet they're the reason why the world of your story will feel so lived in. Now, you might think that world building themes only apply to fantasy or science fiction novels, so let's take an example with no dystopian regime, no magical world. In Pride and Prejudice, while the story is about the romance between Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, the world of that story explores, for one, the commodification of women through marriage. Women are priced based on their dowry, beauty, and accomplishments. But it also explores the barrier of birthright through class stratification. The idea that Mr. Darcy is better simply because of the stone and land he owns. Each of these world-building settings divide the characters in a different way. Now, that's easier said than done, so by the end of this video, I will give you a few pointers on how to do it properly. But first, you need to understand what the second level of theme is. Otherwise, you'll end up with a layered world, which is good, but a layer world that lacks theme unity and ultimately a story that's telling not much at all, which is less good. All right, so if the world-building themes are plenty and divide your characters in that world, the level 2 is the complete opposite. At that level, the theme is singular and universal. It's the one reason why you brought that specific divided cast of characters together into that one story. It's the reason why that story had to be about them. So while level 1 themes are divisive by nature, level 2 themes are unifying. The second level of theme is called the human level theme, what most people call the central question. It's the moral truth that your novel is trying to say, and the one thing that each and every single one of your characters will grapple with the entire story. And not just your protagonist, not just their allies, but the antagonist, the villain, all the way down to characters that appear once and then never come back. Let's go back to our examples. In The Handmaid's Tale, the human level theme is around complicity. The author, Margaret Atwood, confirmed it in an interview to be about how people are pressured into controlling each other and how the system functions exactly by getting everyone to play along with the rules. More often than not, the protagonist, June, decides to stay silent in order to survive. In her flawed perspective, complicity is the only way to stay alive. Even for the wives in power, perpetrating the system is the only way to get what they desire most: a family of their own, and that no matter the cost. In Pride and Prejudice, the human level theme is implied by the title, the idea that if you don't let go of your pride and your prejudices, you may never find true love. Elizabeth's pride and prejudices blind her to who Mr. Darcy really is, and Darcy's pride in his own social superiority blinds him to what he's about to lose. And it doesn't just stop there. Every other character in that story represents a different place on the same spectrum, a different way of being trapped by pride, by prejudice, or both. You see, the magic of these two levels is that they are in complete opposition. Level 1 divides your characters, while level 2 unifies them around a single human truth. So the question is, how do these two levels actually work together? In The Handmaid's Tale, the level 1 themes have placed every character in a specific position in that world. And from that position, each of them has a completely different reason to be complicit. June, at the very bottom of that world, is complicit in order to survive. The wives in power are complicit because perpetuating that system is the only way for them to get the family they so desperately want. The commanders, the men ruling this regime, are complicit for power. And then there are the ants, the women tasked with keeping the handmaids in line. They're complicit for ideology. They generally believe they're doing good while perpetrating evil. All four live in the same world, struggle with the same thematic question, but when the story begins, all four have completely different answers. Of course, seeing this mechanism at play in best-selling novel is one thing. Being able to make it work for your own novel is another challenge entirely. So if you'd like my direct help with your novel, feel free to check the first link in the description. Now, in a world where the level 1 themes are fewer and more straightforward, the mechanism remains the same. In Pride and Prejudice, the world has placed Elizabeth and Darcy at opposite ends of the same divides. She is a woman whose entire future depends on marrying well, trapped by a world that commodifies her. Darcy, on the other hand, is a man whose class has never required him to answer to anyone. And yet, both are blinded by their own pride and prejudices, which are standing between them and who would be the love of a lifetime. So as promised, here are a few questions to help you apply this to your own novel. If you already know the level 1 themes that you'd like the world of your story to explore, then ask yourself, what specific world-building elements, could be a rule, could be hierarchy, physical constraint, whatever that might be, that can force your characters to stand on opposite sides of a line. Now, if you've already built unique world-building elements or inherited some from the genre you're writing in, then ask yourself, who and in what ways do these world-building elements empower or marginalize? And what do these say about the price of living in this world? After that, ask yourself, for each world-building element, how does it affect each character or group differently? What does it give to some and what does it take from others? And as your divides multiply, which characters or group of characters end up sharing the same position? And do those interconnections create meaningfully distinct group, each experiencing the world differently from the others? And finally, from each of these unique corners, what is each character or group's specific reason for struggling with your human level theme? And how does their position in the world make that struggle feel inevitable? All right, now you know how to build a world that divides your characters and gives each of them a unique angle on a central human question. But how do you find that question? How do you identify the one truth that the entire cast, divided as they are, will spend the entire novel grappling with? This is what I cover in this 2-part series. You can start right here.